"Dad, you do not belong here." Those were the exact words my own daughter said to me in front of all her important friends at her graduation. She said it as if I were trash that someone had forgotten to take out. My name is Robert Harrison. I am 65 years old, and what I am about to tell you changed my life forever. It was only 3 months ago, but it feels like it happened yesterday. Listen closely to this story, because what happened after those cruel words will leave you speechless. And when I finish, I want you to tell me if you would have done the same thing I did. Comment which city you are listening from, and share this with anyone who needs to know that you should never underestimate an old man. There I was standing in the middle of the most elegant ballroom at the Plaza Hotel in New York City. It was my daughter Emily's graduation. She had just received her degree as a specialist in cardiology. The event was full of important doctors, politicians, and moneyed people. I had put on my best suit, the only good one I had left. I was proud, watching my daughter receive that recognition, thinking about everything we had gone through to get there. But then that group of elegant women arrived, Emily's friends, all doctors too, with their expensive dresses and shiny jewelry. One of them, a very well-groomed blonde, saw me standing there and asked my daughter, "Emily, who is this gentleman?" My daughter looked at me. For a second I thought she was going to introduce me with pride as her dad, but what I saw in her eyes froze my blood. It was shame, pure shame. "He is—" She hesitated a moment, looking at me as if I were a stranger. "He is my father." But she did not say it with affection. She said it like someone saying, "He is the plumber," or "He is the gardener," with that cold distance that hurts more than a slap in the face. And then when more people started to approach and ask questions, when I saw that my presence was making her more and more uncomfortable, my own daughter, my own blood walked up to me and whispered those words in my ear that I will never forget. "Dad, you do not belong here." The room went silent. All those important people looked at me as if they had just discovered something unpleasant on their shoe. And me? I just stood there, feeling my heart break into little pieces. But I also felt something else, something I had not felt in a long time. A cold, calculated fury rising from my stomach to my throat. "I do not belong here any more," I repeated quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Emily turned red. Her husband Michael approached quickly with that fake politician's smile I knew all too well. "Mr. Harrison," he said in a sugary voice, "why don't you go get some fresh air in the garden? It is very hot in here." It was his elegant way of telling me to get lost, to disappear. To not ruin his wife's moment of glory with my annoying presence, I stood there looking at my daughter, so elegant in her black designer dress, so successful, so different. She was no longer the little girl I remembered. "You know what, honey," I said, taking my cell phone out of my jacket pocket. It was a simple device. Nothing compared to the iPhones everyone else had there. "You are right." Emily smiled with relief, thinking I was going to leave without making a scene. But before leaving, I continued, "Let me just make a quick call." "Dad, what are you doing?" she asked me, and for the first time that night, I heard something like nervousness in her voice. "Nothing, honey. I'm just going to call someone." I dialed a number I knew by heart. A number I had not used in a long time, but I knew it still worked. The phone rang once, twice, and on the third ring. "Hello?" And that was when the smile on my daughter's face started to disappear. Robert Harrison?" The voice on the other end of the line sounded surprised, but also genuinely happy. "Brother, where have you been hiding? I have not heard from you in years." I saw my daughter Emily turn pale. Her doctor friends, who seconds before looked at me like I was trash, were now watching me with curiosity. The change in the atmosphere was palpable. "William," I said to the phone with a smile I hadn't worn in months. "How are you, old friend? Robert, no way." "It is so good to hear you. Where are you?" "Are you in the city?" "I am here at the Plaza Hotel at a graduation." "Ah, a graduation. It must be your daughter, the doctor. How is Emily?" "The last time I saw her, she was just a little kid." I stayed silent for a moment, looking directly into my daughter's eyes. She was completely motionless, as if she had seen a ghost. Her husband Michael had moved closer, trying to listen to the conversation. "Well, look, William," I said, without lowering my voice. "Emily is doing very well. She just graduated as a cardiology specialist. She is quite the successful doctor now." "Wow, that makes me very happy." "Hey, Robert, we have to meet up. I have a lot of things to talk about with you. Do you have time tomorrow? We can have breakfast, just like old times." Emily's face had gone from white to green. Her friends were now whispering among themselves, clearly intrigued by this unexpected call. "Of course, my friend. Tomorrow is perfect. Excellent. I will send my driver at 9. Are you still at the same address?" That was where I decided to play my first card. "No, William, I do not live there anymore. Now I live with my daughter on the Upper East Side. The Upper East Side." "That is great. Emily must have a very beautiful house." "Yes," I said, watching my daughter swallow hard. "Very beautiful. Although, well, you know how young people are today. Sometimes one feels like, how should I say this, like one does not belong." There was silence on the other end of the line. William Sterling was a very intelligent man, and he had perfectly caught the tone of my voice. "Robert," he said, and his voice changed completely. "Is everything okay, brother? Everything is perfect, William. It is just that sometimes one needs to remember who they are, don't you think?" "Ah," he said, and I could hear the understanding in his voice. "Yes, sometimes it is necessary. Hey, you know what? I better come pick you up right now. I want to see you, and I also want to meet that famous doctor. Where did you say you were?" "The Plaza Hotel, the Grand Ballroom." "Perfect. I will be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. The silence that followed was absolute. All the people near us were looking at us with a mix of curiosity and confusion. Emily looked like she was going to faint. "Dad," she whispered, getting closer to me. Who was that? For the first time in 2 years, my daughter spoke to me with respect. Not with affection, but with respect, and even a little bit of fear. A friend, honey. An old friend. Michael, her husband, approached with that nervous smile politicians put on when they do not know what is happening, but sense it could be dangerous. "Mr. Harrison," he said, "is everything okay? Was it necessary to bother anyone?" Bother, that word hit me like a slap. For 2 years, everything I did in their house was a bother. If I watched TV, I was a bother. If I played with my granddaughters, I was a bother. If I breathed too loudly, I was a bother. "It is no bother," I replied. William wanted to say hello to Emily. He has not seen her in years. William asked one of the doctor friends, a tall brunette who seemed to be the gossipy one of the group. William, who, before I could answer, Emily pulled me by the arm and took me to a corner of the room away from her guests. "Dad, please," she said in a low voice. "Don't make a scene. It is my graduation." "A scene?" I asked, feigning surprise. "What scene, honey? I only called a friend." But, she was speechless. She did not know what to say. Why, technically, I had not done anything wrong. I had just talked on the phone. But what Emily? She looked at me with those eyes I had known since she was a baby, the same eyes she made when she had done some mischief and knew she had been caught. "It is just that I do not understand why you needed to call someone right now." "Ah?" I said, and smiled. "Does it bother you that I talk on the phone?" "Can I not do that any more, either?" "It is not that, Dad. It is just that I do not belong here, right?" She fell silent. For the first time in years, my daughter did not have a ready answer. "Look, honey," I said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "For 2 years I have lived in your house feeling like a burden. For 2 years I have endured you, speaking to me as if I were your employee. For 2 years I have seen how you are ashamed of me in front of your new friends. Dad, I never—" "Never what? You never told me to eat in the kitchen when you had guests. You never told your daughters that Grandpa was sick, so they wouldn't bother me when you were in a bad mood. You never introduced me as the gentleman who lives at the house." Every word I said was like a stab wound, and I knew it. But I had been keeping all this inside for too long. "But what hurts me the most," I continued, is that today, on the most important day of your career, you told me I do not belong here in front of everyone." Emily started to cry, not tears of sadness, but tears of guilt, of shame, of fear too, because she had realized she had made a very big mistake. "Dad, I I didn't mean to say that. It is just that I was nervous, and my friends—" "Ah, your friends. Of course. It is more important to look good for your friends than to respect your father." At that moment, Michael approached, clearly worried about the conversation we were having. "Mr. Harrison, Emily, is everything okay?" "Everything is perfect," I told him. "We are just waiting for my friend to arrive." Your friend Michael repeated as if he did not understand the concept. "Yes, William Sterling. Do you know him?" I saw Michael turn pale instantly. Of course he knew that name. Any politician in New York knew that name. "William Sterling?" he asked with a trembling voice. "The director of the National Bank." "The very same." Michael stood with his mouth open. Emily looked at me as if I had grown another head. How do you know William Sterling?" My daughter asked me. "It is a long story, honey, but let's just say William and I have a friendship of many years." At that moment, one of the hotel employees came running over. "Mr. Robert Harrison." "Yes, that is me. There is a gentleman looking for you. He says he is Mr. Sterling. He is downstairs in the lobby." Emily and Michael looked at each other with panic in their eyes. "Ah, he arrived quickly," I said, smiling. "Well, let's go say hello. Emily, come. William really wants to meet the famous doctor." And I started walking toward the exit, knowing perfectly well that my daughter and her husband had no choice but to follow me. The real show was about to begin. When we arrived at the hotel lobby, I saw him immediately. William Sterling was standing next to the marble columns, as elegant as always in his perfectly tailored navy blue suit and Italian shoes shining under the ceiling lights. But what caught my attention the most were his eyes. When he saw me coming down the stairs, his whole face lit up. "Robert!" he shouted, opening his arms as if we were brothers, reuniting after a war. He hugged me tight. One of those hugs real friends give you. It had been so long since I received a hug like that. In Emily's house, even hugs were fake, quick, like fulfilling an obligation. "Damn it, Robert, you look just as tough as always," he said, laughing. "Although a little thinner, right? Are you not eating well?" I felt Emily tense up beside me. William had asked that question naturally, but the implications were clear. "You know how it is, friend. The years do not pass in vain. The year's my foot. You and I are the same age, and I feel better than ever." William patted me on the back and then looked toward where Emily and Michael stood like statues behind me. "And this beauty must be Emily," he said, walking toward my daughter with that charming smile I remembered so well. "The last time I saw you, you were about 8 years old, and you spent your time running around your dad's office." Emily froze. "My dad's office? Of course. Your dad hasn't told you how we met, has he? William looked at me with that mischievous face he put on when he was about to tell a funny story. "Robert was the most feared head of security in the entire city. When I was just a junior executive at the bank, your dad literally saved my life." "He saved your life?" Michael had found his voice, although he sounded like a scared mouse. "Not once." Twice William laughed. The first time was during a robbery. 3 thugs armed to the teeth entered the bank on a Tuesday morning. I was at the main branch doing an audit when the shooting started. My daughter was looking at me as if she were seeing me for the first time in her life. For 2 years living in her house, I had never told her these stories. She believed I was just an old man who had owned a small security company. She knew nothing of my real past. Robert appeared out of nowhere, continued William like a ninja. The 3 robbers ended up on the floor before they could fire a single bullet. I had never seen anything like it. "William exaggerates," I said, but the pride in my voice was noticeable. "I exaggerate nothing. Later I found out you were ex-military, that you had worked in the Secret Service, that you had trained in Israel. Robert Harrison was not just any security guard. He was the best." Emily had her mouth open. Michael looked like he was going to faint at any moment. Secret Service? My daughter asked with a trembling voice. Of course. Your dad protected 3 different presidents before opening his company? You didn't know that? Of course she didn't know. In Emily's house. I was just the annoying old man who watched TV all day and played with the girls. We never talked about my past because she never asked. She was not interested. And the second time William continued was when those criminals wanted to kidnap me. Remember Robert? It was back in 2010 outside that Italian restaurant. I remember perfectly. 5 guys and 2 black SUVs. They had me surrounded in the parking lot. I thought it was my last day in this life, and suddenly Robert appeared with his team, like in an action movie. In less than 3 minutes, all the kidnappers were on the ground. I was just doing my job, friend. Your job. Robert, you saved my life twice. And not only that, for 10 years you were responsible for the security of the entire banking group. All the most important executives trusted you. Politicians, businessmen, even famous artists. I watched Emily's face change color, from white to red, from red to green. She was realizing that for 2 years she had been treating someone who had been a legend in his field like trash. William, I said, I think you are impressing my daughter too much. Impressing her, she should be super proud. Robert, when I found out you had closed the company, I was heartbroken. Why didn't you call me? I would have helped you with whatever. That was when I decided to drop my second bomb. Well, the truth, friend, times were hard. You know my wife's health problems, the medical bills, the economic crisis. I had to sell everything to pay for treatments. It was a lie, but a strategic lie. William, who was very intelligent, immediately caught the message. Of course. Medical expenses here are brutal, even if you have money. And more so when it is someone as beloved as Mary, may she rest in peace. Emily looked smaller and smaller. Her husband Michael was sweating like he was running a marathon. But well said, William, those times are over. The important thing is that you are okay, that you have a successful daughter who takes care of you. The phrase takes care fell like a bomb on the group. William had said it naturally, but we all knew it wasn't exactly like that. Yes, I said, looking directly at Emily. My daughter has given me a roof, although sometimes one feels that... Well, that one does not belong. William frowned. It was the second time I used that phrase, and he was no fool. What do you mean you do not belong, Robert? You are a legend. There are people in this country who owe you their lives, myself included. At that moment, Emily couldn't take it any more. Tears began to roll down her cheeks, ruining her perfect makeup. Dad, she whispered to me, I did not know. I did not know all that. You did not know what, honey. You did not know who I was. Before... William looked at both of us and, like the intelligent man he was, began to understand the situation. Robert, he said, in a low voice, can I talk to you alone? Of course, friend. We walked a few meters away. Emily and Michael stood there like 2 statues, not knowing what to do. Brother William told me what is happening here. Something does not smell right. Nothing. Friend, just that sometimes children forget who their parents are. William stared at me. He had worked with me long enough to know when I was planning something. Robert, what do you need? That question was exactly what I was waiting for. William Sterling was not only one of the most powerful men in New York, he was also my friend, and he knew that if I asked him for help, it was for something important. Right now, nothing, William. But, do you still have that house in the Hamptons? The one you use for important guests? Of course. Do you need it? Maybe. Just maybe. William smiled. That smile I knew very well, the smile he put on when he understood perfectly what was happening. Robert Harrison, he said, I think someone is going to learn a very important lesson very soon. Could be friend. Could be. When we returned to where Emily and Michael were, the atmosphere had changed completely. My daughter had red and swollen eyes, and her husband looked like he had seen the devil himself. Well, said William with that smile I knew so well. I think we should go somewhere more private to talk. Robert, how about we go to the hotel bar? Sounds perfect, friend? Emily approached quickly. Dad, I think we should go back to the house. It is late, and the girls are with the nanny Emily, I replied without looking at her. And besides, I have not talked to William in a long time. We have a lot of catching up to do. But, Dad. But what, honey? For the first time in years, my voice had authority. Can I not talk to my friends? Michael cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Harrison, if you like, we can join you. William laughed. Of course. The more the merrier. Besides, I want to get to know Robert's family better. We headed to the hotel bar. It was an elegant place, with jazz music in the background and dim lights. William asked for a table in a corner, away from the noise. When the waiter approached, my friend ordered a bottle of expensive Scotch whiskey. Well said, William, pouring for everyone. Tell me, Robert, what have you been doing all these years? Before I could answer, Emily jumped in. My dad has been living with us since he closed his company. Ah, yes. You told me you had economic problems because of Mary's illness. William looked at me with that expression he used when he suspected something didn't add up. But you know what catches my attention, Robert? That you never asked me for help. I would have lent you whatever. You know how I am, William. Proud. Yes, too proud. William took a sip of his whiskey. Do you remember that time in Atlantic City when you rejected the contract with the Falcone family because you said you didn't work with dirty people? Michael almost choked on his drink. The Falcones were a well-known political family, and William's comment had been very clear. That time you lost like $5 million, continued my friend, but you said your reputation was worth more than money. And I was right, I said. 6 months later, the Falcones were put in jail for money laundering. Emily looked at me like I was an alien. For 2 years, she had thought I was a failure. Now she was realizing I had rejected millions of dollars on principle. And then there is the matter of the cartels, continued. William, remember they offered you to be their head of personal security. It was an easy job, very well paid. The cartel asked Michael with a trembling voice. The same ones answered William. They offered Robert $10 million a year, just to protect the family. And I told them to go to hell. I added, I protected honest people, not criminals. Exactly. That was the difference between you and many others in the security business. You were always clean. That is why we all respected you. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Emily realized that for years she had lived with a man of integrity, honorable, and she had treated him like trash. Dad, said my daughter quietly, I didn't know all that. There are many things you don't know, honey. William observed us both with interest. He was a very perceptive man, and had caught the tension between Emily and me. Robert, he said, can you explain something to me? If you were so successful, if you had so many contacts, how did you end up in financial trouble? Because honestly, it doesn't add up. There was the question I had been waiting for. It was the moment to start revealing the truth. Well, friend, things were not exactly as I told you. Emily sat up straight in her chair. Michael stopped breathing. The truth is, I didn't go broke because of Mary's medical bills. Then I went broke because I trusted the wrong person. William frowned. What person? I looked directly at my daughter before answering. My partner, Albert Miller. Michael turned white as a sheet. Miller was his last name. Albert Miller repeated William slowly. Miller. Like your son-in-law, Albert Miller, is my father-in-law, mumbled Michael. The silence was absolute. William looked at me. Then he looked at Michael. Then he looked at me again. Robert said, my friend, very slowly, are you telling me your partner was your son-in-law's dad? Exactly. And what happened? That bastard stole everything from me. The company, the bank accounts, even the properties I had put up as collateral. Emily's mouth hung open. Michael looked like he was going to faint at any moment. How? Asked my daughter. Very easy, honey. Easy. Your father-in-law was very smart. Over 2 years, little by little, he moved money from company accounts to personal accounts. He forged my signature, invented non-existent expenses. even bribed the accountant. But that is impossible. Michael would have told me. Michael knew, asked William, looking at my son-in-law with a predator's face. No, I didn't know anything. Michael was sweating like he was in a sauna. My dad never told me anything about that. Of course not, I said. Why would he contaminate his son with his crimes? Robert said William, and his voice had changed completely. Now he sounded like the director of the most important bank in the city. Do you have proof of what you are telling me? Of course I have proof. Where are they? In a safe place. William leaned back in his chair, processing all the information. He was a businessman and understood perfectly the implications of what I had just revealed. Let me see if I understand, he said slowly. Albert Miller stole your company. You were left with nothing. You went to live with your daughter, who is married to the son of the man who robbed you. And for 2 years, no one knew the truth. No one. Why didn't you say anything before? That was the million-dollar question. I looked at Emily, who was watching me with a mix of horror and curiosity, because I didn't want to ruin my daughter's life. She loved Michael. They had 2 little girls. They were happy. Why would I destroy her marriage with my problems? So you stayed silent, said William. I stayed silent. But today something changed. Today my daughter told me I do not belong here. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily had started crying again, but this time they were tears of something deeper than shame. It was pure pain. Dad, she whispered, I didn't know. If you had known, what would you have done differently? Honey, would you have treated me better? Would you not have been ashamed of me in front of your friends? William intervened. Robert, what do you plan to do now? I expected that question. I smiled for the first time in a long while. Now, friend, I am going to take back what is mine. The phrase, I'm going to take back what is mine, hung in the air like a threat. Michael was visibly shaking. Emily cried silently, and William looked at me with a mix of respect and curiosity. Robert said, my friend, leaning forward, What do you need from me? Before I could answer, Michael exploded. This is madness. My dad would never do something like that. You must be confused, Mr. Harrison. I stared at him. The poor boy was desperate, trying to defend a man he didn't even really know. Confused, I asked him calmly. Michael, do you know how your dad got the money to buy you that house on the Upper East Side? He had savings. Savings. Your dad was an accountant for a mid-sized company. Do you think an accountant can save millions to buy a house for his son? Michael fell silent. He had never asked himself that question. And the luxury car he gave you when you got married, and the money he gave you for the political campaign, were those savings too? I thought he had invested well. Yes, he invested. He invested my money. William watched the exchange as if it were a chess match. Robert, how much money are we talking about? $4.5 million plus the properties. My friend whistled low. That is not robbery, brother. That is looting. Emily finally found her voice. Dad, why did you never say anything? Why did you let us think you had failed? The question hurt more than I expected. I took a sip of whiskey before answering. Because I saw you were happy, honey. When Michael proposed to you, you glowed. When the girls were born, you were the happiest woman in the world. How was I going to destroy all that by telling you your husband was the son of a thief? But you lived 2 years humiliated in our house. In my house, I corrected her. Because I paid for that house without knowing it. Michael turned even paler. What do you mean? I mean the money your dad gave you for the down payment came out of my bank accounts. That the furniture, the car, even Emily's engagement ring, I paid for all of that. That is impossible. Impossible. I took out my cell phone and dialed a number. William, can I borrow your phone? I want to make a conference call. My friend handed me his latest model iPhone. I dialed the number of Mr. Vance, my lifelong lawyer. Counselor, it is Robert Harrison. Yes, I know it has been a while since we spoke. Listen, do you still have the files on the Miller case perfect? Can you come to the hotel? I am at the bar with my family, and I need you to explain some things to us. Excellent. We are waiting for you." I hung up and saw the terrified faces of Michael and Emily. "What files?" asked my daughter. "The files that prove how your father-in-law robbed me systematically for 2 years." At that moment, the waiter arrived with another round of drinks. The atmosphere was so tense, the poor guy walked away quickly, sensing he had interrupted something important. "Robert," said William, "why did you never go to the police?" "The police?" I laughed bitterly. "Albert Miller has contacts everywhere. Politicians, police, judges. If I had gone to denounce him, the only thing I would have achieved is for them to invent some crime and put me in jail. So you waited, I waited, because I knew the right moment would come to act, and that moment is now." I looked at Emily, who watched me with a mix of fear and guilt in her eyes. The moment arrived when my own daughter told me I do not belong here. Michael stood up abruptly. "I need to go to the bathroom." "Sit down," I told him firmly. "Excuse me." "Sit down, Michael. You are not going anywhere until the lawyer arrives. You cannot force me." William laughed. "You know what, kid? I wouldn't be so sure about that. Robert Harrison is not exactly the type of man you want to mess with." Michael sat down slowly, like a scolded child. "Dad, Emily said to me, I want to ask for your forgiveness." "Forgiveness for what?" "For everything. For treating you badly. For being ashamed of you. For telling you that you didn't belong." "Emily," I interrupted her, "forgiveness is for mistakes. Yours were not mistakes. They were decisions." She started crying harder. "But I didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't want to know. For 2 years you lived with me in the same house. How many times did you ask me about my past? How many times were you interested in knowing how I felt? I was busy with my career with the girls. You were busy being ashamed of me." William intervened gently. "Rabar, she was young. She made mistakes." "William," I said, "would you treat your father like that?" My friend stayed silent. He knew the answer. At that moment, an elegant man appeared in the bar, looking toward our table. It was Mr. Vance. "Robert," he shouted from the entrance. "Good to see you." He approached our table, carrying a black leather briefcase. He was a man in his 60s with a white beard and those intelligent eyes that good lawyers have. "Counselor, thank you for coming. I want to introduce you to my family." Vance greeted everyone politely, but I noticed how his eyes lingered on Michael a little longer than normal. "Well, Robert, what do you need? I want you to explain to my family what happened with Albert Miller." The lawyer opened his briefcase and took out a thick folder full of documents. "Of course. Where do I start from the beginning?" "Tell them how you learned of the case." "Well said," Vance, adjusting his glasses. "Robert came to my office in December of 2021. He had discovered that his partner Albert Miller had been stealing money from him systematically." Michael clutched his whiskey glass as if it were a lifesaver. "What type of theft?" asked William. "Unauthorized transfers, fake invoices, invented contracts. All very sophisticated. Miller was not a common thief. He was a very intelligent, white-collar criminal." "How much money?" asked Emily with a trembling voice. $4,540,000, plus 3 properties and 2 vehicles." The silence was absolute. Even the music in the bar seemed to have stopped. "And why didn't you proceed? Legally?" asked Michael. Vance looked at me, waiting for my authorization to continue. I nodded, because Miller had very high political protection, but above all because Robert asked me to wait. Why? Because he didn't want to destroy his daughter's family. Emily covered her face with her hands. Michael looked like he was going to vomit, but Robert continued. "The lawyer also asked me to gather evidence. For 2 years we have been documenting everything. Every transfer, every forged document, every hidden bank account. Do you have enough evidence to proceed?" asked William. "We have enough evidence to put Albert Miller in jail for the next 20 years. Michael stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. "This is a lie. My dad is not a criminal." Vance looked at him with pity. "Young man, did you know your father bought a house in Miami last year?" "With cash. A house in Miami." Emily looked at her husband. "Michael, your dad has a house in Miami." "Me? I didn't know." "It is worth $4 million, added the lawyer. paid completely in cash with stolen money. And that was when Michael finally understood the magnitude of the problem his family was in. Michael stood next to the fallen chair, breathing as if he had just run a marathon. His hands were shaking, and his face was completely white. "A house in Miami," he repeated, as if the words made no sense. "My dad has a house in Miami," had corrected Mr. Vance, "because that property will be seized when we file the lawsuit." When asked William, that was the question everyone was waiting for. I looked at my daughter, who watched me with terror in her eyes, then at Michael, who looked like a cornered animal. "That depends," I said slowly. "Depends on what?" asked Emily. "Depends on many things, honey." Michael sat down heavily as if his legs could no longer hold him. "Mr. Harrison, I didn't know anything about this. I swear on my daughters. You didn't know anything." He asked, "You didn't know your dad deposited money every month into an account you thought was from your salary as a local congressman?" "How do you know that?" Mr. Vance pulled another document from his folder. "Because we have been investigating all the Miller family's bank movements for 2 years. This is illegal surveillance," muttered Michael. "No kid," said William with a cold smile. "This is legitimate financial investigation. When someone steals that much money, they leave a lot of tracks." Emily wiped her tears and looked directly at me. "Dad, what do you want? What do you need to not proceed?" That question hurt more than I expected. For 2 years I had lived in her house, enduring humiliations, hoping that someday she would remember who her father was. And now, when she finally knew the truth, the only thing she cared about was negotiating. "What do I want?" I repeated. "Emily, what do you think I want?" "I don't know." "You tell me." "I want respect. I will give it to you, Dad. I promise that." "No," I interrupted her. "It is too late for promises." The silence that followed was heavy. William watched everything as if it were a very interesting play. "Robert, he told me, what is the plan?" Before answering, I dialed a number on my phone. "Rachel, it is me." "Yes, I know it is late. Could you come to the Plaza Hotel? I need you to bring the keys." "Yes, all of them." "Thank you. See you in 20 minutes. "Who is Rachel?" asked Emily. "My new assistant." "New assistant." Michael frowned. "You have an assistant?" William laughed. "Michael, I think there are many things about your father-in-law you don't know." At that moment my phone rang. It was a text message. I read it and smiled for the first time all night. "Good news," I announced. "Mr. Morales just confirmed that tomorrow, at 9 in the morning, we have an appointment with the federal judge." "What federal judge?" asked Michael, with a trembling voice. "The judge who is going to issue the arrest warrant against your dad." Emily stood up so fast she spilled her drink. "Dad, you can't do that." "Why not?" Because we are family." Those words hit me like a slap. Family. When were we family? Emily, we have always been family. Always. I stood up from my chair, feeling taller and stronger than I had felt in years. "When you told me to eat in the kitchen because you had important guests, were we family? When you told Bella that Grandpa was sick so she wouldn't bother me, were we family? Dad, When today you told me I do not belong here in front of all your friends, were we family?" Emily started crying again, but this time it didn't move me. I had cried too many nights alone in my room, feeling like a burden in the house I myself had paid for without knowing it. Robert sighed William gently. "Are you sure about this? More sure than ever." At that moment Rachel arrived. She was a woman in her 40s, very professional, carrying an executive briefcase. She approached our table, unfazed by everyone's long faces. "Good evening, Mr. Harrison. Here are the keys you asked for." "Thank you, Rachel. Is everything ready at the Hamptons' house?" "Everything ready. The movers will arrive tomorrow at 10 in the morning to pick up your things." Emily looked at me with horror. "You are leaving?" "I am leaving." "Where to?" "To my new house in the Hamptons." William smiled. "Ah, so you were going to use the guest house. No friend, that house is already occupied. So I bought my own house last week." The silence was total. Everyone looked at me as if I had said I was going to live on Mars. "You bought a house?" asked Emily. "With what money?" "With my money." But you don't have money. You lost everything." "Emily," I told her with a smile I hadn't had in years, "there are many things you don't know about your dad." Mr. Vance cleared his throat. "Robert, do you want me to explain about the bank accounts?" "What bank accounts?" Michael had found his voice again. "The accounts your father-in-law opened in the United States before his partner robbed him," explained the lawyer. "Robert didn't lose all his money. He lost the money he had in the operational accounts, but he had investments abroad." William laughed out loud. "Robert, you son of a gun, you had me worried." "You have money?" asked Emily as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I have enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to buy myself a new house, hire lawyers, private investigators, and live comfortably the rest of my life." "Then why did you live 2 years in our house if you had money?" That question was the heart of it all. I looked my daughter straight in the eye before answering, because I wanted to see if my daughter loved me or loved my money. "Dad, now I know. That is not fair. Not fair." My voice had turned cold. "You know what is not fair, Emily, that a 65-year-old man has to pretend to be poor, to know if his own daughter loves him." Michael stood up again. "Mr. Harrison, we can fix this. We can talk to my dad. Make him return the money. Your dad is going to return the money, I told him. But that is not all I want. What else do you want? I want justice. What does that mean?" William answered for me. "It means Albert Miller is going to jail. But that will destroy the whole family," murmured Michael. "Exactly," I said, "just like he destroyed mine." Rachel approached me. "Mr. Harrison, do you need anything else tonight?" "Yes, call the driver. I am leaving." "You are leaving?" Emily stood up quickly. "And the girls?" "And us." "The girls will be fine. They are strong like their grandfather. As for you two—" I shrugged. "Dad, please. We can resolve this as a family." For the last time, I looked at the woman who had been my adored little girl, my princess. My pride and I saw a stranger. "Emily," I said, "we do not have a family anymore." And I headed toward the exit of the bar, knowing my life was about to change forever. I left the Plaza Hotel bar with a feeling I hadn't had in years. Freedom. Behind me I heard the hurried steps of Emily, who followed me to the lobby. "Dad, wait," she shouted at me, not caring that all the elegant people in the hotel were staring. "You can't leave like this." I stopped and turned slowly. "Why can't I leave Emily? Because we are family. Because we need to talk. We already talked. For 2 years we had the opportunity to talk, and you never wanted to do it." Michael arrived running behind her, with William walking more calmly behind. Mr. Vance had disappeared discreetly with all his documents. "Mr. Harrison," said Michael with a desperate voice, "give me a chance. Let me talk to my dad. I can convince him to return all the money." "Michael, your dad is going to return the money anyway. But not because you ask him, but because the law will force him. But if he cooperates, if he returns everything voluntarily, maybe you can—" "Can but forgive that he stole $4.5 million from me. Forget that he destroyed my company. Pretend nothing happened." At that moment the driver Rachel had sent for arrived. He was a young man, very professional, with an impeccable uniform. "Mr. Harrison, shall we go?" "Yes, let's go." Emily stood between the driver and me. "Dad, you can't leave." "What am I going to do? How am I going to explain this to the girls?" That question stopped me cold. Bella and Chloe, my granddaughters. The only people in that house who had truly loved me during these 2 years. "The girls," I said slowly. "They will be fine. How will they be fine if their grandfather disappeared from their lives? I am not going to disappear from their lives, Emily. I am going to disappear from yours." "Ah, what is the difference?" William intervened. "The difference, Emily, is that your daughters haven't disrespected their grandfather. They still deserve to have him in their lives." "Exactly," I said. "Bella and Chloe can come visit me whenever they want. My new house has a big garden, a pool, even horses. They're going to be very happy there. Horses, Emily's voice cracked. Dad, they have always wanted horses, I know. That is why I bought them. It was true. For 2 years I had heard my granddaughters talk about how much they wanted to ride horses, but at the house on the Upper East Side there was no space, and Michael always said it was too dangerous. But Dad insisted, Emily, if you take the girls on weekends, how am I going to explain why I can't go? You are going to explain the truth. What truth? That their mom hurt Grandpa very much, and that now Grandpa needs time to heal. Emily started crying again, but this time they were different tears. Tears of someone who finally understood the consequences of her actions. Dad, I love you. I have always loved you. You love me, I sassed her. Or do you love what I represented when you were 8 years old and I was still successful? I love you. No, Emily, you love the memory of what I was. The powerful man. The one who had money. The one who bought you everything you wanted. But the real man, the one who had problems, the one who needed your support, you never loved him. Michael stepped closer. Mr. Harrison, you are being very hard on her. Hard, I laughed bitterly. Michael, do you know what hard is? Hard is listening to your own daughter tell her friends that you were her father as if you were already dead. Emily never said that. Of course she said it. This very night. He was my father. The silence that followed was heavy, because everyone knew it was true. The driver cleared his throat discreetly. Mr. Harrison, can we go? It is getting very late. I nodded, but before getting in the car, I looked one last time at my daughter. Emily, for 25 years, you were the most important thing in my life. I gave you everything I had. I paid for your best education. I protected you from all problems. But when I needed protection, when I needed you to defend me, you chose to be ashamed of me. Dad, I can change? No, honey. It is too late to change. William approached me. Robert, are you sure about this? More sure than ever. And what happens tomorrow? Tomorrow at 9 in the morning we go to the judge. At 10 the movers arrive for my things. At 12 the arrest warrant is executed against Albert Miller. Michael turned pale again. They are going to arrest my dad tomorrow. They are going to arrest your dad tomorrow. Where? At his office, in front of all his employees, just like he humiliated me when he kicked me out of my own company. Emily approached the car where I had already gotten in. Dad? This will destroy my marriage. Your marriage is already destroyed, Emily. It is just that you haven't realized it yet. What do you mean Michael is going to have to choose between supporting his dad or staying away from the scandal? And something tells me he is going to choose his dad. I looked at Michael, who had lowered his head. His silence confirmed everything. See, I told my daughter. He already chose. The driver started the engine. It was time to go. Dad, Emily shouted at me. When will I see you again? When you learn to respect me. And how am I going to learn that, just like I learned to respect myself? The hard way. The car started moving. In the side mirror, I saw Emily standing at the hotel entrance, crying like a lost child. Michael was by her side, but he wasn't comforting her. He was already calculating how to save his political career from the coming scandal. William had gotten into his own car and followed us. I knew he wanted to talk to me alone. As the car moved through the streets of New York, I took out my phone and called Rachel. Everything ready for tomorrow. Everything ready, Mr. Harrison. The house is perfect. I even hired a cook, as you asked, and the horses. They arrived this afternoon. 2 very gentle mares, perfect for girls. I smiled. Bella and Chloe were going to be very happy. And the other thing I asked for, is that ready too? The private detective already has all the information on Michael Miller's bank accounts. It is going to be interesting when Emily discovers where her successful husband's money has come from all these years. I was going to save that information for later, because although I had already punished my daughter, I wasn't finished with her husband yet. Michael Miller had lived off money stolen by his father for years and had allowed me to be treated like trash in the house I had paid for without knowing it. He was going to pay too. Rachel, tomorrow, after they arrest Albert, I want you to deliver an envelope to Emily. What envelope? The one containing the bank statements proving Michael knew perfectly well where the money came from, because I had been investigating for 2 years and had discovered Michael wasn't as innocent as he pretended to be. The night was just beginning, but for the Miller family, everything was coming to an end. At 8 in the morning the next day, I was having breakfast in my new house in the Hamptons when the phone rang. It was William. "Robert, how did you wake up like new friend? And you with a lot of desire to see today's show. What time do we meet at the courthouse?" "At 8:30. I am leaving for there." While talking to William, I watched through the window of my new kitchen, the garden I had ordered arranged especially for Bella and Chloe. The two mares grazed peacefully under a tree. My granddaughters were going to love this place. "Hey, Robert, William told me last night I couldn't sleep well. Are you sure you want to go all the way with this?" "More sure than ever. It is just that I think about the girls. William, the girls will be better off without a father who lives off stolen money and without a maternal grandfather who is a criminal. In the long run, this will do them good." "You are right. See you in an hour." I hung up and dialed Rachel's number. She answered on the first ring. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison. Good morning. Is everything ready?" "Everything perfect." Federal agents arrived at Albert Miller's office at 7 in the morning to keep him located. "The search warrant is ready, and the envelope for Emily is on its way." "Perfect. What time did they calculate the arrest will be?" "Between 12 and 12:30, just as you want it. It was important that it be at that time. Albert Miller always had lunch with his most important clients on Wednesdays. I wanted all his partners and acquaintances to see him taken away in handcuffs. At 9 sharp, I was at the federal courthouse. Mr. Vance was waiting for me at the entrance with a satisfied smile. "Robert, good morning. Ready to make history?" "Ready." Judge Martinez already reviewed all the documents last night. He says it is the clearest fraud case he has seen in years. We entered the courthouse. William was already there, elegant, as always chatting with an older man I didn't recognize. "Robert," he shouted when he saw me, "I want to introduce you to Mr. Hayes, and he is a specialist in organized crime." "Organized crime?" "Yes," explained Hayes. "When someone steals that much money and launders it through properties abroad, it automatically becomes an organized crime case." "What does that mean?" "It means Albert Miller isn't just facing fraud charges, also money laundering and organized crime. We are talking about 30 years in prison minimum." 30 years. Albert Miller was 62. If he got 30 years, he would die in prison. And Michael, I asked, "My son-in-law?" "Ah, yes. Your son-in-law also has serious problems." Vance opened his folder and showed me some new documents. "Robert, last night we finished analyzing Michael's bank accounts. Not only did he know where the money came from, but he actively participated in the laundering. How his political campaign was fully funded with stolen money. But the most serious thing is that he signed some of the fake documents himself." William whistled low. "So Michael goes to jail too? The two of them, father and son, are going to share a prison." At that moment the court clerk came out. "Mr. Vance, the judge can see you now." We entered Judge Martinez's office. He was a man of about 50, with a serious face but intelligent eyes. I had heard of him. He had a reputation for being incorruptible. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," he said, rising to greet me. "I have read your case. It is truly outrageous what they did to you." "Thank you, Your Honor. I want you to know I am going to do everything in my power to see justice done." We sat down, and the judge began signing the documents. Arrest warrant for Albert Miller, search warrant for his home and office, preventive seizure of all his properties, including the Miami house, and Michael Miller asked Vance. "His warrant is here too," said the judge, signing another document. "They are going to arrest him this afternoon at his local congressional office." My phone vibrated. It was a text from Rachel. "Move complete. Your things are already in the new house." "Emily asked if she can speak with you," I replied. "Tell her after 3 in the afternoon." The judge finished signing all the documents and handed them to Mr. Hayes. Gentlemen, you have the green light. Let justice be done. We left the courthouse at 11 in the morning. William invited me to breakfast, but I had other plans. Friend, I appreciate all your support, but I want to be present when they arrest Albert. Are you going to his office? No, I am going to be at the cafe, across the street, watching everything. I will join you. We arrived at the offices of Miller and Associates at 11:30. It was a modern building in Midtown, very elegant. Albert had built all that with my money. We sat at the cafe across the street and ordered 2 cappuccinos. From there we could perfectly see the entrance of the building. At 12 sharp, the federal police vans arrived. 4 units, 12 armed federal agents. Here we go, I said, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in years. The agents entered the building like an avalanche. William recorded everything with his cell phone. Robert, this is going to be on every nightly newscast. Perfect. At 12:15, we saw Albert Miller exit the building. He was handcuffed, flanked by 4 federal agents. His face of terror and confusion was exactly what I had hoped to see for 2 years. The journalists had already arrived. Flashes everywhere, TV cameras recording everything. The man who had stolen $4.5 million from me was having his moment of fame. My phone rang. It was Emily. Dad. What do you want, Emily? I just saw the news. They arrested Albert. Yes, I know. Dad, Michael is crying. He says they are coming for him too. Michael is right. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. They are going to arrest my husband too at 3 in the afternoon. Dad, please. He didn't do anything. Emily, your husband knew everything. He participated in the fraud. He signed fake documents. He used stolen money for his political campaign. That is not true. In an hour you are going to receive an envelope with all the proof. Then call me and tell me if you still think your husband is innocent. I hung up the phone and looked at William, who had finished recording. How do you feel? He asked me, like I woke up from a 2-year nightmare. And now what happens? Now I start my new life. At that moment my phone rang again. It was Rachel. Mr. Harrison. The girls are here. They arrived with their nanny. Emily told them they could come see the new house. I smiled for the first time all day. Perfect. I am on my way. I stood up from the table and left a $50 bill. It was time to go. William, thanks for everything. Do you want to stay and watch when they arrest Michael? No. I have seen enough revenge for today. Now I want to see my granddaughters meet their horses. And I left, leaving behind 2 years of humiliations and starting the first day of the rest of my life. When I arrived at my house in the Hamptons, the first thing I heard were the shouts of joy from Bella and Chloe. They were in the garden running toward the mares with that pure excitement only children have. Grandpa, shouted Bella, the oldest, running toward me with open arms. Look how beautiful the horses are. I hugged her tight, feeling my chest fill with the happiness I had forgotten existed. For 2 years I had lived for these moments, the genuine hugs of my granddaughters, their unconditional smiles, their pure love. Do you like them, Princess? I love them. Can we really ride them? Of course, that is what I bought them for. Chloe, the little 5-year-old, approached more shyly. Grandpa, is it true you live here now? Yes, my love. This is my new house. Do you like it? Her little eyes lit up as she looked at the garden, the pool, the fruit trees. It is the prettiest house in the world. The nanny Linda approached with a nostalgic smile. She was an older woman who had taken care of Emily as a child and now took care of my granddaughters. Mr. Harrison, the girls are very excited. They haven't stopped talking about the horses since we left the city. Thanks for bringing them, Linda. Are you okay, Mr. Harrison? Mrs. Emily was very upset this morning. I am better than ever, Linda. The girls can stay over. Of course. Mrs. Emily said they could spend the whole weekend here. Bella pulled my hand. Grandpa, can you show us your new house? Of course. We spent the next hour touring the entire property. It was a 2-story house with 6 bedrooms, a huge living room with a fireplace, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and best of all, a garden of almost an acre with fruit trees, flowers of all colors, and even a small orchard. Grandpa Chloe told me, "Why did you move houses?" It was the question I knew would come. I sat on the swing I had ordered installed, especially for them, and put them on my lap. "Princesses, do you know that sometimes adults have problems between us? Like when Mom and Dad fight," said Bella. "Exactly. Well, Grandpa had some problems with his mom and dad and decided it was better to live in my own house. You don't love Mommy anymore?" asked Chloe with those innocent eyes that broke my heart. "I will always love your Mommy, my love, but sometimes when someone hurts you a lot, you need to step away a little, so it stops hurting." "Did Mommy hurt you?" "Yes, Princess. She hurt me." Bella, who was older and understood things better, stared at me. "Is that why Mommy was crying this morning?" "Probably. And is that why Daddy was crying too?" That question surprised me. "Your dad was crying?" "Yes, he was talking on the phone and crying. He was saying things like, 'It can't be,' and I am finished." I looked at my watch. It was 2:30 in the afternoon. In half an hour they would arrest Michael. Probably someone had already warned him. "Well, princesses, what do you say we go meet the mayors?" The next 40 minutes were magical, watching my granddaughters petting the horses, giving them carrots, laughing when the mayors sniffed them with their soft noses. This was what really mattered. This was true love. At 3:15 my phone rang. It was Rachel. "Mr. Harrison, mission accomplished. Michael Miller was arrested in his congressional office. It is already on all the news. Perfect. And Emily. She received the envelope an hour ago. According to our contact, she fainted when she saw the evidence. Now she knows her husband deceived her for years. Has she called?" "Not yet, but I calculate she will any moment." As if it were a prophecy, my phone started ringing immediately. It was Emily. I walked away from the girls to answer. "Dad, what do you want, Emily?" "They just arrested Michael." Her voice sounded completely broken. "I know. And I read the documents you sent me. And Michael knew everything. He signed the documents. He used the stolen money for his campaign." "Correct." There was a long silence. I could hear she was crying. "Dad, my life is falling apart. I am sorry, Emily." "You are sorry you made this happen." "No, honey. I didn't make your father-in-law rob me. I didn't make your husband participate in the fraud. I didn't make you treat me like trash for 2 years. I just uncovered the truth. But what am I going to do now? How am I going to support the girls? How am I going to pay for the house?" Those questions hurt because they showed she still didn't understand the most important thing. "Emily, at no point have you asked how I am. If it hurts to have lost my daughter, if I miss the family we had before Dad for 2 years, I endured humiliations, hoping someday you would remember you loved me. It never happened. And now that your world is falling apart, the only thing you worry about is money. That is not true. I love you. You love me. Or do you need my financial help now that your husband is in jail?" The silence that followed was the clearest answer I could have received. "Emily," I said with a firm voice, "the girls will be fine. I am going to take charge of their expenses, their education, everything they need. But with you, I want nothing to do anymore." "Dad, you can't do that." "Why can't I?" "Because we are family. You told me yourself I do not belong here." I was angry. "I didn't mean it." "Of course you meant it. You said it in front of all your important people to look good for them. You used me as an example of what you didn't want in your new life." Bella came running over. "Grandpa, can we make a bonfire tonight and roast marshmallows?" I smiled, covering the phone with my hand. "Of course, Princess. Go ask Linda to buy marshmallows in town." "Dad, who are you talking to?" asked Emily on the other end of the line. "With Bella." "They are here at my house. The girls are with you." "Yes. They are going to spend the weekend here. And every weekend they want." "Dad, I need to see them." "A lot of things happened today, and the girls are very well here. They are happy, they are safe, and they are with someone who loves them unconditionally. I love them too. I know Emily. But love isn't just a feeling. It is also actions, respect, protection. And you haven't protected your daughters from a criminal father. I didn't know Michael was a criminal because you didn't want to know. Just like you didn't want to know who your dad really was. Chloe came running with a butterfly in her hands. Grandpa, look how pretty it is, beautiful, my love, but let it go free so it can fly. Emily heard the whole exchange. Dad, please let me come see you. Let me explain. There is nothing to explain, Emily. For 2 years you had the opportunity to treat me well, to ask me how I felt, to include me in your life. You chose to humiliate me instead. I can change. It is too late to change. Will you never forgive me? That question made me reflect. I looked at my granddaughters playing in the garden, so happy and innocent. I thought about all the pain of the last 2 years, but also about all the beautiful years we had before. Emily, I finally told her, forgiveness is not asked for. It is earned. With actions, with time, with real changes. Not with tears and desperate promises. What do I have to do? You have to learn to be the woman I believed you were when you were a child. You have to remember the values your mom and I taught you. You have to find the Emily who was proud of her family, not the one who was ashamed of it. And if I do, if I really change, if you really change, maybe someday we can be a family again, but a lot of time will have to pass, and you will have to prove it to me, with facts, not with words. How much time? Whatever time is necessary, Bella shouted at me from the garden. Grandpa, it is time to ride the horses. Coming. Princess, I shouted back. Emily, I have to hang up. My granddaughters are waiting for me. Dad. What I love you. I know, honey. The problem is you didn't know how to show me when I needed it most. And I hung up the phone. It was time to teach my granddaughters to ride horses and to really start my new life. 6 months after that night at the Plaza Hotel, I was sitting on the terrace of my house, watching Bella and Chloe ride their mares in the garden. It was a Sunday morning, and the Hampton sun came in softly between the trees. Grandpa, look, Chloe shouted at me from her horse. I can gallop all by myself. Very good, Princess, but slow down, don't fall. In these 6 months, many things had changed. Albert Miller had been sentenced to 32 years in prison for fraud, money laundering, and organized crime. Michael received 25 years as an accomplice. The two were in the state penitentiary, sharing a cell like an irony of fate. I had completely recovered my money, plus interest and penalties the judge had determined. In total, it was almost $5 million. I had bought this house. I had secured my granddaughter's educational future, and I had enough left to live like a king the rest of my days. But the most important thing wasn't the money. It was the peace I had found. Linda approached the terrace with a tray of coffee and freshly made pastries. Did you have breakfast? Mr. Harrison. No, Linda. Thanks for thinking of me. The girls want to know if they can invite their cousins to Bella's birthday party next week. Of course. This house is theirs, too. Linda hesitated a moment before speaking. Mr. Harrison, can I ask you something? Sure. How do you feel after everything that happened? It was a question I asked myself every morning. I feel free, Linda. For the first time in years, I feel free. Do you not miss Mrs. Emily? I miss the girl Emily was, but the woman she became. No, it was true. During these 6 months, Emily had tried to contact me dozens of times. Calls, messages, letters. She had even tried to come to the house, but I hadn't given in. I had been very clear. If she wanted to return to my life, she had to demonstrate with actions that she had really changed. And if she really changes, asked Linda, if she really changes, there will always be a chance. But until now, all she's done is ask for forgiveness. With words, not with deeds. Bella got off her horse and ran toward me. Grandpa, can we go to town to buy ice cream after lunch? Of course, Princess. And can we call Mommy so she comes with us? They asked me that often, and every time it hurt a little less. but it was still hard. Honey, I already explained that your mommy and I have adult problems we need to solve. But you love her. But loving someone doesn't mean you have to allow them to hurt you. Bella looked at me with those wise eyes children sometimes have. Like when Chloe hits me and I don't play with her until she asks for forgiveness for real. Exactly like that. And Mommy hasn't asked for forgiveness for real, no princess. Only with words, not with actions. At that moment the doorbell rang. Linda went to see who it was, and returned with a surprised face. Mr. Harrison, it is Mrs. Emily. She says she needs to speak with you urgently. My first reaction was to tell her to leave, as I had done the other times. But something in Linda's expression made me hesitate. How does she look? She looks different. Very different. The girls had heard everything. Mommy is here, shouted Chloe, running toward the door. Wait, I shouted. First let me talk to her. I walked toward the entrance of the house with a mix of curiosity and suspicion, and when I saw Emily I understood why Linda had said she looked different. My daughter had lost a lot of weight, had deep circles under her eyes, and dressed in a completely different way. No designer clothes or expensive jewelry, just simple jeans, a white blouse, and comfortable shoes. She looked like the Emily of 20 years ago. Hi, Dad, she said with a soft voice. Can I talk to you for 5 minutes? What for? To give you this. She extended a thick envelope. I opened it and found a check for $200,000. What is this? It is the money Michael and I spent in the last 5 years. The money that was yours. I have been saving it by working. Working at what is a doctor in a public hospital. Double shifts, night watches, weekends. Everything I could get. I stayed silent, processing the information. Emily had worked as a doctor in a public hospital for 6 months to save $200,000. And the Upper East Side house, I sold it. With that money, I paid Michael's lawyer, although it didn't do much good. And what was left is in that check. Where do you live now? In a small apartment near the hospital. The girls have their room there, although they prefer being here with you. For the first time in 6 months, I saw something in my daughter's eyes I had been waiting for. Genuine humility. Why did you do this, Emily? Because I finally understood what you told me, that forgiveness is earned with actions, not with words. The girls appeared behind me and ran toward their mother. The hugs were long and full of tears of joy. Mommy, said Bella, Grandpa says you guys have adult problems. Yes, my love, but I am trying to solve them. Like when I asked Chloe for forgiveness. With actions, not just with words. Emily looked at me surprised. You have been teaching them that I teach them what you and your mom didn't teach them. That words without actions are worth nothing. My daughter nodded slowly. You are right, and that is why I am here. Not to ask you for forgiveness again, but to show you I have changed. How? By stopping, being the superficial woman I had become. I sold everything that could be sold. I left behind all those fake friends who mattered more to me than my family. I started working as the doctor you taught me to be, not the trophy wife I was with Michael. We walked toward the terrace, followed by the girls. We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching Bella and Chloe run through the garden. Emily, I finally told her, why did you take so long to realize all this? Because I was lost in a world that wasn't mine. A world where what others thought mattered more than what my family felt. I was ashamed of my humble origins. I was ashamed that my dad wasn't a famous politician or businessman. You were ashamed of me. I was ashamed of myself, but I didn't know it. I believed I was ashamed of you. But in reality, I was ashamed of the superficial woman I had become. And now I am proud to be Robert Harrison's daughter, of a man who built an empire with honest work, of a man who protected presidents and important businessmen, of a man who sacrificed everything to give the best education to his daughter, even when that daughter treated him like trash. The words reached my heart, but I kept my guard up. I had heard promises before. Emily, what you are telling me is very nice, but I need to see more than words. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me today, or tomorrow, or next month. I only hope you give me the chance to show you I have really changed. What do you propose that you let me come see the girls once a week without pressure, without asking you for anything, just to spend time with them? And that with time you see that the woman I am now is different from the one I was 6 months ago. I looked at my granddaughters who had come closer and were listening with attention. What do you think I asked them? Do you want your mommy to come visit you once a week? Yes, they both shouted at the same time. But I told them, lifting a finger, if your mommy behaves badly with me again, you have to tell me. Okay, okay, answered Bella very seriously. I stood up and looked Emily directly in the eyes. You have one chance. Just one. If you waste it, there won't be any more. I understand, Dad. And another thing. The money you brought me, I am going to keep. Not because you need it, but because it represents that you are willing to sacrifice to make amends. Of course. Very well, you can stay for lunch with us today. The girls want to go for ice cream in town later. Emily started crying, but these were different tears. Tears of relief, of hope, of gratitude. Thank you, Dad. Don't thank me yet. This is just starting. And while I watched my 3 most important women hugging in the garden of my new house, I thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the revenge, the justice. And now, maybe, the redemption. I had learned that respect is not begged, for it is earned. That dignity is non-negotiable. And that sometimes to teach someone to value you, you have to be willing to lose yourself temporarily from their lives. But I had also learned something more important, that true love always finds a way back home, and that it is never too late for a new dawn, as long as you come with hands full of actions, not just words. There we were on my terrace in the Hamptons, starting a new story. A story where Robert Harrison was no longer the humiliated old man, but the man who had recovered his dignity and maybe was about to recover his daughter too. But this time on my terms, as it had to be from the beginning.